Hi viewers, welcome you once again to Micro Learning. This is again your Shailaja. So today we are going to continue with chapter 5 Monetary Economics. It's an interesting topic because we were studying about the money, the circulation of money, okay, and Fisher's quantity theory of money. So today we are going to go into a interesting topic which is called as inflation. So the topic covered under 5.5 to 5.5.3. So under that we are going to see what is inflation. So generally what is inflation? General rise in price level. That the prices of the commodities are rising, then it is due to inflation. So in your book the simple meaning given is rise in general price level. So what is inflation? Rise in general price level. You can put it into another word. General price level for goods and services is rising. Okay. How it is rising? Consequently. And what is happening to the purchasing power of currency? It is falling. So these are the two meaning of inflation. Next, we can see a picture on the screen. Look at the year 2000. Look at the commodities in the trolley. They were more commodity. 2010, you can see the commodity has become lesser. Because why? The prices have risen. Now when it comes to 2018, you can see only a few commodities inside the trolley. So the price is generally keeping on rising year to year. So this we call it as inflation. So what is happening to the purchasing power? The purchasing power is falling. People are not able to buy at times because of the high inflation. Now let us go and classify. Let us finish the definition. Now what is the definition for economics? Too much of money chasing too few goods, or a state of abnormal decrease in the quantity of purchasing power. Okay, what do you mean by too much of money chasing too few goods? Only few goods are available. What is happening? There is too much of money chasing too few goods, they are saying. That is, the prices are risen. So people are not able to buy. Okay, and a state of abnormal decrease in the quantity of purchasing power. So when the prices rise, what people generally do? They slow down the purchasing power. So here we are going to see the different types of inflation. So inflation is divided into 4 categories: creeping, walking, running, and hyperinflation. So the 4 types of inflation: creeping, walking is more faster than the creeping inflation. Running inflation is more faster than the walking inflation. Galloping inflation is the most fastest one than the first three. Okay, and this is supposed to be very dangerous to the economy. When I say regarding creeping, there will only be a slight change in the price. For example, 125 paise change or a 50 paise change, or within 1 rupee, something like that, which is very mild and people will not feel the burden. That's creeping. When it becomes to walking, it is more than the creeping. Okay, maybe 2 rupees, 3 rupees. Okay, sometimes we will be knowing the pinch of it at times. Running is very much faster. Okay, the percentage of inflation is much higher than the walking as well as creeping. But galloping, or we call it as hyperinflation, generally horses, what do? They run, they gallop. That is very, very fast. Okay, so inflation like that also. Galloping inflation is nothing but it is a hike in price where no human being can survive at that particular point because the prices are very high. So let us now see creeping inflation, each heading in detail. So what is creeping inflation? It is called as slow moving, or it is called as very mild. It is no way dangerous. What do you mean by it is no way dangerous? People will not feel the inflation because it's very mild. So what is the other name for creeping inflation? It is called as mild inflation or moderate inflation. This is regarding creeping inflation. Now the next one is walking. The prices rise moderately because they move only in single digit. Maybe 3 to 9% change, we call it as a walking inflation. It is otherwise called as trolling inflation. So these can be objective question. So when the price rises about 3% to 9%, you should write it as trolling inflation. Or might be they can ask you what is trolling inflation. Next is running. So creeping, walking is over. Now we are going to see running. How the prices are rising rapidly. Rapidly means faster. So speed of 10 to 20%. Okay, that is why it is called as running inflation. Now we are going to see an important country which passed through this hyperinflation, Zimbabwe. Okay, in the 21st century, the inflation has risen to the greatest level. Okay, even in Sri Lanka recently, we have seen that the inflation has risen to the greatest level. So next one is galloping inflation, the very fastest inflation. So galloping inflation is called as hyperinflation. And what happens during this hyperinflation? The prices are rising by 20 to 100%. Okay, that is very, very high, where normal human being finds it very difficult to buy any commodity. So he has to starve only. So here next one we are going to see demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. What is cost push inflation? Cost means expenses. Okay. When we spend for buying raw materials or when we spend more amount of money for factors of production, that is called as the cost push inflation. Okay. When the cost rises, what happens? Prices are rising. Next one is demand pull inflation. Demand is going to pull the inflation. So here we are going to see what is demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation is nothing but inflation level in the society at all point of time. So demand and supply. Now these two play a very significant role in deciding the inflation, or they play a very important role. Demand and supply plays a very important role in demand pull inflation. So if the demand is high for the product, the supply is low. So what happens? The price of the product increases. This is what we call it as demand pull inflation. Next one is cost push inflation. Cost is pushing the inflation. So what is cost push? When cost of raw materials and other inputs are rising, generally inflation rises. So increase in wages paid to labor also leads to inflation. This is called as cost push inflation. Second one, wage spiral inflation. What is wage spiral inflation? Wage spiral inflation is nothing but the spiral is used to explain the cause and effect relationship between the rising wages and rising prices. This is what we call it as wage price spiral. Okay, rising in wages as well as rising in prices. So all of us know when your income increases, the price also increases. So here also they have given the same thing. This is called as wage price spiral. They are interlinked with each other. Next one is the other types of inflation. We have the currency inflation, credit inflation, deficit and induced inflation. So what is currency inflation? Currency inflation is nothing but when the supply of money is more, what happens? Okay, what happens? Yes, all of us know very well. The prices, how about the price level? Price level also increases. So excess supply of money in circulation causes a rise in price level. Now what is credit inflation? Banks will give loans towards the public. During that time also there is more money. So during that time also inflation rises. The next one is deficit induced investment. Inflation. What is deficit? Shortfall of money, we call it as deficit. So when there is a deficit budget, what happens? You have to finance through printing of currency. Okay, and because of that, what happens? The currency comes more into circulation. Because of that, there is a rise in inflation. Now, profit induced inflation. So here when the profits are rising, what happens? Prices also rise. Because of that, inflation comes in. Next is scarcity induced inflation. That is, scarcity means shortfall of goods. Okay, either due to because of production or some problem in the market. Anyway, it can be. Okay, so this we call it as scarcity induced inflation. And which country has faced this is Venezuela. In 2018, it has faced this scarcity induced inflation. That is shortfall of production, might be because of the resources or might be because people would like to hide and keep money, that we call it as hoarding. Okay, or because of black marketing. Okay, one may be the reason for scarcity induced inflation. Next is tax induced inflation. So what is happening? People have to pay direct as well as indirect taxes. When they pay these taxes, what happen? Taxes may lead to rise in prices also. This is mainly applicable to petrol and diesel. Okay, so what is happening? Tax inflation is increasing because we are supposed to pay more tax. Next is, what are the causes of inflation? The main causes of inflation is increase in money supply. So money supply is more in the country. What happened? The demand increases. So the supply of money is increased. That leads to the demand for the products. So normally what happens when the money supply is more? The rate of inflation is supposed to be very high. Next is increase in disposable income. Disposable income already we have seen in chapter 2 under national income heading. Okay, after paying all the indirect tax, the leftover is there. So when we pay all these indirect taxes, those are called as disposable income. So when disposable income of the people is increasing, what happens? It rises their demand for goods and services. So disposable income may increase with the rise in national income. So as income increases, okay, with the rise in the national income increasing. So reduction in taxes, reduction in saving of the people. So increase in public expenditure. When government is taking up activities and doing welfare for the people or for the development activities of a society, money is spent more over here. So when there is an increase in public expenditure, naturally inflation rises. Increase in consumption, consumer spending. So the demand for goods and services increases when they are given credit to buy goods and higher purchase. Generally, when we go towards during festival seasons, okay, what do? We usually buy like AC, television and refrigerator, all these things we buy. So we don't give it in cash and collect it. Most of us do credit transaction, or we do hire purchase, or on an installment basis we buy. Next one is cheap money policy. Cheap money policy is nothing but this cheap money policy also leads to increase in the money supply. So cheap money itself tells you that there is more money in the economy that is in circulation. Deficit financing. What do you mean by deficit? Shortfall of the revenue is called as deficit. So the rising aggregate demand in relation to aggregate supply leading to inflationary rise in prices. Black assets, activities and money. There exist black money, black assets, okay, corruption, all these are taking place. So what people do? People spend such money lavishly. Lavishly, as they like, they spend it, because it may not be their money as such. So, or sometimes people like to keep it, they hoard it and keep it. So this trends lends to rise in price level further. Repayment of public debt. We would have borrowed from other countries or from any external sources, or sometimes we have to pay the past debt because the due date would have been over. So this also leads to increase in the money supply. Increase in exports. So when exports are encouraged, what happens? The domestic supply of goods is declining, because more we concentrate on goods to be exported to other countries. So when we export more, we will get more income from other countries. Now you have a worksheet. State the 4 types of inflation. Which country faced hyperinflation in the 21st century? What is demand push and cost push inflation? What are the inflation that is based on inducement? List the causes of inflation and explain 5 in detail. So those who are watching the channel for the first time, please share, subscribe, comment and share your views to Micro Learning. This is once again Shailaja from signing off from all of you. Thank you very much.